Okay, R-Rated Reviews back, adding another video to the catalog, this time looking at Senlin Ascends by Josiah Bancroft. This was a really cool book. Basically, Senlin, our protagonist, is a straight-edge teacher who goes on holiday with his missus. She gets lost and he's determined to find her. That's the plate that this fantasy meal is served on, and Bancroft has garnished the plate excellently. It's a nice blend of a very straightforward fetch quest featuring normal people with a fantastical steampunk setting that hides some neat surprises and dark mysteries. I absolutely love Senlin as an atypical hero. At first, bumbling and weak and all soft edges, the difficult situations he finds himself in harden him through experience like calluses on a guitar player's fingers. Despite this being fantasy, Senlin is just a teacher. He's got an analytical mind. He's good with numbers and languages. He understands human motivation. These are the tools he has at his disposal, not magic or a secret power or some arcane training. So when he struggles with his challenges, it's easy to empathize with him. He's so human after all. And when he finds ways to persevere, it again is incredibly rewarding, as he does so with a salt-of-the-earth flair and total lack of any deus ex machina. Now, it took a while for this book to get going, but the second half ratcheted up the intrigue, and I'm very much invested in what the future has in store for Senlin. While you're waiting for the book to get its feet under it, so to speak, just enjoy some of Bancroft's beautiful writing. On page 43, Bancroft is weaving his language with clever homespun colloquialisms. Marya worked in the Burke's general store, stocking the shelves and stretching lines of credit, to Miss Olivette Burke's patient consternation. "Our customers aren't fish, my dear," Miss Burks once remarked. Lengthening the line doesn't make it any easier to reel them in. On page 48, there's a remark on Senlin's lost lady, and it alludes to the nefarious nature of the tower. "Most likely you won't find her at all. Women get sucked up the tower like embers up a flue." He flapped one hand and gave a buzzing whistle. "Anything in a skirt floats." On page 49, Senlin has been introduced to the glorious Beer Me Go Round, where purposeful yet thoughtless manual labor gets rewarded with free beer. And as he's grinding and gulping, he reminisces on his newly vanished wife and how different they are. "But my dear," he replied, mistaking this as an appropriate time for a lecture on geometry, "the center of a circle is infinitesimally small point. It hardly exists at all. Suits me. I'd rather be a nothing at the center of everything than a puffed-up somebody at the edge of it all." She said this in her usual unguarded way, and without meaning to, she had described him exactly, a puffed-up somebody at the edge of it all. Page 59 has Senlin explaining his rather rational approach to love. Senlin did not believe in that sort of love, sudden and selfish and insatiable. Love, as the poets often painted it, was just bald lust wearing a pompous wig. He believed true love was more like an education. It was deep and subtle and never complete. This is opposed to the actor on page 66 that seems to approach love in a way Senlin would condescend. Pining dipped to kiss her hand. "My dear, I leave you now to sweeten our reunion. Is not the sun most splendid in its exits and entrances? May our setting and rising, our dusks and dawns be every bit as colorful." Page 64 demonstrates Bancroft's ability for striking imagery. "Her hair, dark as a wet slate, was styled high on her head. Her complexion was the caramel color common in the south of Her charcoal eyes and thick eyebrows were striking, but not in a way that suited the frilliness of her peach-colored dress. She looked like an over-frosted cake." Page 309 has Senlin wheeling and dealing and trading his esoteric knowledge for some physical education. "I'm going to feel very weak, and you're going to feel very dumb, but that's how it always is in the beginning. Learning starts with failure." And that's kind of suitable for this whole book, really. He starts very weak, Senlin, and as the book progresses, again, as he goes through all these experiences, he is gaining in strength and composure, and his skill set is broadening. And it's a really cool adventure to be on with him as he sort of makes his way through all these pitfalls and gains new skills. And that's probably the coolest thing about this book, is just being along for the adventure and watching Senlin's evolution. Now, as I find the 5-star system a bit limiting, I like to use my subjective rating system SLICK, which stands for Story, Language, Ideas, and Characters on a 10-point scale. Here's how I rated Senlin Ascends. For story, I gave it a 7. It's really more of a character study and fantastical travelogue than a great story. For language, I gave it a 9. I really like his writing. It grounds the fantasy elements with the believable. For ideas, I gave it a 9. The Tower is a fascinating vehicle for this story, and honestly, just the beer me go round alone makes this book worth reading. For characters, I gave it an 8. Senlin is a wonderful, wobbly hero, imperfect and interesting, and the evolution he goes through feels believable and intriguing. I do, however, think the supporting cast could have been a little bit stronger. I also strive for a contrived comparison with every book. This book is Bruce Lee's Game of Death. The main reason for this comparison is the excitement of verticality and mysterious challenges. Just as Bruce Lee finds himself flowing up the levels of the pagoda like water, Senlin also is climbing the levels of his tower and facing each distinct challenge on the way. And despite both Game of Death and Senlin Ascends lacking a little something, they're both memorable in their own way. So that's it for this week's episode of R-Rated Reviews. I hope you enjoyed it or hated it. As long as there's an emotional reaction, I'm happy. And see you next week on R-Rated Reviews.